everybody to the Patient Education and Information Forum. This is part of the COGNO conference that's going on at the moment, funded and supported by the Brain Cancer Group, who I work for. So I'm a nurse practitioner in Neuro-Oncology, funded by the Brain Cancer Group, and I work at primarily, at Royal North Shore Hospital, North Shore Private. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's great to have you all on board. Okay. I'd like to begin by acknowledging all traditional custodians, pay respects to elders past and present. As we endeavour to serve the health needs within the community, we recognise the importance of the land and the waterways as an integral part of people's health and well-being. I'd like to introduce Dr. Eng-Siew, who's going to provide us with the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, and good morning, everyone. What a stunning venue. To be on the top floor in Alto really says something. I think it lifts our spirits, and I think it's very enigmatic of today. It's my pleasure just to give a very brief welcome and opening to this year's forum. I'm going to start with a brief quote from Amelia Barr. Amelia quoted, "It is always the simple that produces the marvellous." And in this so-called simple act of gathering today, I know that took a huge amount of effort for many people to put aside the busyness of every day, to gather together, to open our minds, our hearts and our spirits, to listen and to learn and to share. And as a clinician, I'm a radiation oncologist based at Liverpool Hospital in southwest Sydney. I have the honour of chairing COGNO, which is our national brain tumour trials group. And we're really pleased to be able to support this event. And I must say, it remains one of my favourite events in our whole calendar because it reminds me as a clinician and as a researcher in looking after patients, why what we do remains so important, and it spurs us on and motivates us to keep on. So I would really commend you for the simplicity of gathering here today and wish you a wonderful time of learning, sharing and support with this forum. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So just quickly a little bit of, not housekeeping because I'm not even sure where the toilets are, but someone will tell me. But there are people online. We want to encourage people, if they've got any questions here, there's some Q&A bits of paper on your tables. If you've got any questions that come up, if you could pop them on those Q&A bits of paper and somebody will be around to collect them, and then we'll do Q&A at the end of the morning session. And for people online as well, they can also pop questions in and we'll have a look at those as well and do the best that we can to answer those. Okay, our first speaker this morning is Dr. Erin Dunbar. She's a founding physician of the Brain Tumour Centre and Director of Neuro-Oncology at Piedmont Atlanta Hospital. She specialises in the comprehensive care of brain and spine tumour patients who are battling both primary and metastatic tumours. She's an avid clinical researcher and a collaborator with organisations including the National Cancer Institute and other national brain tumour centres. She's a passionate driver of patient-centred care through her service to advocacy forums like the Southeastern Brain Tumour Foundation and the American Brain Tumour Association, and in her service to medical associations like the Society of Neuro-Oncology and the American Academy of Neurology. Dr. Dunbar will speak with us today about simultaneously managing a bucket list and a shopping list, strategies to feel and function well in the face of a brain tumour. Please welcome Erin. Thanks very much.
Hi, can you hear me in the back? All right. Let's see. So my slides, I'm going to be looking over here, okay? And I'll transition and look over here periodically. What an absolute privilege it is to be here with you. Why am I here? Because of you guys, truly. This is my honor and my passion. Thank you to the hosts and the sponsors today. So we're going to talk about things that are really, really important today. These slides are your slides. I've left references at the end that I hope that you use. And please do not hesitate to email me any questions. I'll get the information back to you as quickly as I can. So why am I passionate about this topic? Well, I'm passionate about this topic for several reasons. One is that, I'm not a priest or prophet. I'm not an expert in any of these topics, but these are my life experiences every single day. So one example would be, in my lifetime, I've come across a lot of different scenarios where people have mandatory counseling, a release of a firearm to a police officer, someone who's experienced a trauma, a drama, a tragedy. And I thought after 25 years of doing neuro-oncology, wait a second, I need a grief counselor. I need a sadness counselor. I need a life coach to help me do this every single day. Another reason is that I've definitely had many, many people tell me what they would wish for someone that's lived past them. And I wanted to take that wisdom and move it in my life and in others. Another would be that I like to translate quotes. So in the diet or nutrition world, they'll talk about, your body is a chemistry lab, not a calorimeter. And I thought about it. You're right. A pound of Cheetos is not the same as a pound of protein. And it's important, in the contents, the ingredients. Another one would be the fact that the highest level of human interaction is really interdependence. We all need each other. And then last but not least, mental health is brain health, is human health. And we need to destigmatize brain health. I pass by every day in my hospital. It says heart clinic. It doesn't say heart failure clinic. Who would want to walk in there? So here we go. So really, if we think about life as a continuum, we think about 100% care. Of course, I'd love to give 100% care, but what the hell does that mean? Well, firstly, I want to lower the tumor burden, its speed, its growth. But also I have to focus on people's quality of life, their symptoms. And when I use the word palliate, I want to use that word like my buddy, my pal, to soothe, to comfort, to clothe. That's that base word pal. And so I want to focus on lowering the tumor, but also helping someone's quality of life. So in concept, this is what I want to do every day, just like each of us want to experience in our own lives, our own professions. But however, that's not reality. In reality, it's much more complex than that. We have the trauma of diagnosis, and then we can settle into a new normal, and that's where we really want to focus on advanced care planning and symptom support. We go back and forth in different chapters of treatment of when are we slowing down the tumor? How are we focusing on symptoms? It's an incredibly iterative process. We start pre-bereaving, pre-anticipating events that are going to happen. So do we as healthcare workers. When I'm saying hi to someone, I'm also saying a slow goodbye. Not all the time, but whether it's 15 years, 25 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 3 months, it is a relationship that's going to start and most of the time end at some point. We start thinking about concepts like hospice, end of life, and then of course we have bereavement and healing of the caregivers. We also can think about life continuum as in concepts like episodic versus continuous. So there might be and I know we have phenomenal clinicians here and also in the main meeting, that they do episodic care. When do I use a treatment? Exactly who do I use it on? Exactly in what way? And then you have other providers who actually provide continuous care. They provide a medical home. So we look at that, and that is a different way we can think about a patient's and a family's life continuum. So one of the concepts that I would like to share with each of us, and this is how I think about my life, and I hope all of us think about this as we think about ours and our families, is we want to really have a balance. And we want a net positive balance when we think about our health. And that means in the brain tumor world, lowering the tumor volume, speed, side effects, and then increasing our quality of life. And multidisciplinary teams are really the key. They can help us translate our goals of care into a plan of care so that we can all live our best, longest life. That might be tumor-directed, slowing down the tumor or its growth rate. It might be symptom-directed, safety, quality of life, symptoms from the tumor. And we have to balance all of those things to live our best life. So one of the analogies that I think is very near and dear to my heart and very true to all of our life experiences is when I meet someone, I say authentically, I want you to live your best, longest life. And I want it to be in your own artistry, as if you're writing your most beautiful life novel. And I didn't want to be a character in this chapter. You didn't want to meet me. I didn't want to meet you. None of us wanted a tumor as a plot theme in this chapter. However, what we want to think about is helping you live your best, longest individual life story. So if I lined up three people besides you or your loved one that had a similar tumor in a similar location, you'd have different experiences each of these treatment chapters. So my job is to help people have the most pages in each chapter, be really smart and facile about knowing that we need to change chapters, and then having as many pages in that chapter and keep on going. But the binder of our life story is our quality of life and our goals. So we have to be well enough to get treatment and well enough to want treatment. So I want everyone to write their individual best life story. So how do we do that? Well, I love this illustration because this is really true, right? This is our life plan at the top, and oh no, this is our real life plan at the bottom. And I feel that all the time. You know, I'm on plan W by 10 o'clock most mornings, and you're planning one thing and something else happens. Well, the same thing in our healthcare, same thing in our loved ones' healthcare. We have to prepare for the unknown and possible. So this is an environmental example. So I just left Georgia and Florida, where we just had 2 back-to-back hurricane, Category 5 hurricanes. And I've lived through plenty of hurricanes. Each of you have your own weather stories. My grandfather was in the state of Florida, a government worker. And one of his jobs was to look at insurance and actuarial protection of the state. And so the picture on the left shows what's the probability that a hurricane is going to hit the panhandle of Florida. Well, then the middle picture is where the Category 5 hit Florida, and the picture on the right is even more true, which is all the predictions, right? So that is literally, we have that hanging up on our family. We have a property by the water. That's where they predicted. So then the next picture is even more true. And this is a real weather map prediction before Hurricane Michael. Look at, they wrote, "We don't know." That's exactly what happened. So it hit a place in Florida that it had not predicted to hit, nor was likely to hit. That picture on the right, that is a beautiful place on the coast where my sister had gotten married 2 months ago. Everything was demolished except for one wooden, not brick, not hurricane proof, none of these upgraded houses. One old building is the only one that stayed. So that kind of is symbolic. So now here's a medical example, and this was one of my favorite sort of things that hit you and you never forget. So day one of being a doctor, like way back, really long time ago, I was holding all the pagers. I almost, I looked like I just had all the pagers around me. It was like weighted down like a scuba diver. First day of being a doctor, I was in charge of the post-transplant cardiac patients. So I was like, oh my God, all these patients just got a heart transplant. I can't even spell the drugs. I don't know if they go through the liver and kidney, and I'm supposed to keep these people alive. Holy crap. Well, one of the reasons that that's important is because I was so raw that I took in and internalized for the rest of my life that you don't get on the transplant list unless you're simultaneously on the hospice list. Because the doctor said, we don't know. We don't know if you're going to get a heart, are you going to have a rejection, an infection, something going to happen. We don't know. So you have to prepare for both. And that was really impactful for me. So one of my favorite quotes by Susan Sontag, a philanthropist and financial donor in the American public, she described this so beautifully. She said, "Illness is the night side of life, a more onerous citizenship. Everyone who is born holds citizenship dually in the kingdom of the well and the sick." whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we have baggage we can see, a scar, or we have unknown baggage, baggage inside, an invisible baggage. We all have a dual citizenship. So let's talk about this novel that we're writing. It really is important that we do advanced planning on the unknown and the impossible. And that includes understanding our goals and wishes for our medical, material, our dependents, our animals. We got to communicate them with our caregivers. We have to communicate them with our medical professionals. And it's really important that we value that advanced care planning. You can't get right until you get real. And so what I could tell you is that there is copious literature that says the better we plan for our future, the happier and better our lives will be. So a few examples in my world. I love this book called The Conversation. It's talking about we should talk this about life, about real life and what our wishes are at the Thanksgiving table and the breakfast table and the business table and everything. But this is a nice practical guide for those conversations with ourselves and our loved ones, with our healthcare workers. In America, we have something called 5 Wishes, and I love it because it's a philosophical document talking about what do we want to emphasize, our comfort, our longevity, what are the things that we want to pass on to others as themes of our lives. And then, of course, things like advanced directives or living wills. It's not important to try to predict in 10 years of technology, do we want to be on antibiotics for 14 days or 15 days? No. Just appoint people who can help the medical professionals at that time make those decisions and give them themes that matter. So some of those examples, I wanted to give you a few by Carol Robinson. 17 families were interviewed about living well with chronic illness. Of course, it's important for prevention and control and management of diseases, but as they were interviewed, more and more, they wanted to talk about living well. And the more they talked about living well and tried to align themselves with living well, they lived better and better longer. They conceptualized an iterative process of going through phases like fighting, accepting, living with a chronic illness, sharing experiences, and reconstructing life. And this particular reference lists lots of ideas for healthcare workers and institutions and really focuses on living well and supporting the patient and family relationship. It's a really nice review. Also, Carol Robinson had a different review that I really liked as well, which is, the process of living well does require that we face that we do all have a mortality. And so if we say, I am dying, I may die soon, we start living a lot better than if we put that idea off. It's not meant to be a morbid or sad concept. It's meant to say, how are we authentically going to live our best, longest life? Well, let's really focus on living well while we're living. So I like this also. This is called a shared respite, a meaning of place for families, and how that correlates with well-being and many times living better and better longer. So I like the idea of a family, whether born or made, no distinction, born or made. It is a place for relief, reflection, recreation, and comfort. I was drawn to this article because I've always called my clinic a medical home. We're going to be your medical home for life. And people will come to me and say, I never thought I'd want to come to the brain tumor center. I mean, I would think, don't you want to avoid that? And oh my God, I have to walk through that door. Isn't that sad? People say, no, we want to come here. It's respite. It's a medical home. What an honor. So for us to live our best, longest life in our own artistry, we have to create a medical team. And this is just an example of a few of these essential people, many amongst you, and those that you cherish. And that publications show that it improves all sorts of things. Quality of care is measured by all of us stakeholders, efficiency, reimbursement, medical outcomes, caregiver and patient satisfaction, and access to care, diversity, equity, etc. So working in multidisciplinary teams, everybody wins. It's also important that we create a home team. Now, that can be a biological or chosen family, friends, social networks, relationships we have within pastimes like rugby or our jobs, spiritual or organizational, incredibly important. One of the things that I would like to describe is that just like forming a medical team, if we form a home team, it correlates with length of life, quality of life by all ways we can measure. I love this concept of the ring theory. I don't know if you've heard it. This was really important for me in how I communicate and how I encourage other people to surround themselves around someone who is currently living with a chronic illness. So the concept is the person in the crisis is in the middle. And then their relationships based on strength and association go out like rings. So if you're in the middle, it's only the person in the middle or in the center that can really complain about, what they're feeling and complain. Everyone on the outside should just comfort in. It's not that's not the person you complain to. So maybe you complain to someone else that it's hard to be a caregiver, but maybe not to the patient themselves. So I think it's a really beautiful way. Doesn't mean that us caregivers or carers, healthcare workers can't be tired, exhausted, complain, be mad, pissed, frustrated. But the patient, the innocent patient in the middle, isn't necessarily the person that we share that with. We talk about it with other people. So just as in life, as in with health, we also want to balance. So it's really, really important. If we did a PubMed search, if we did a lit search, or if we were talking amongst us, whether all of us in the room or across countries, across continents, across the ages, we have different lexicon. So it's really, I think in its elemental way, I think of it being positive concepts and negative concepts. So if we look at some of those words down the concept, right? So contentment, happiness, fulfillment, health versus things like sorrows, sadness, loss, emptiness, exhaustion. And then what's really important is that balance can also be called a struggle, juggle, or limbo. And so a tumor diagnosis really exemplifies negative emotions. However, and especially for us healthcare workers or us civilians who aren't currently challenged by a health issue, it can come from any loss or any change or any intensity. So it could be loss of a job, loss of one's personal time, discordance with one's peer group, getting a sense that like life is passing you by, or you're getting older, your body's declining. Any loss or change can be kind of negative or traumatic. And so it really exemplifies that limbo, like, well, with uncertainty, how do I focus on, what do I focus on? How do I focus on it? Where do I go from here? People talk about living scan to scan, holding their breath, not knowing how to plan, counting the sand in their hourglass changing. And really, when we think about happiness or quality of life, it comes in so many different domains. It is so huge. It's such a personal concept and so intricate. So I like thinking about, well, let's proactively balance living our best life, our net benefit, our bucket list and our grocery list or our shopping list. We got to be proactive about it. So instead of reactive, let's be proactive. Instead of surviving, let's thrive. The point at the bottom is one of the most important concepts. Hard to put a slide around, but this is really one of these take-homes of our humanness. If we look across the ages and look across all the secular religious philosophers, it really comes down to that sense of inner positivity, inner peace, inner happiness, all of those positive feelings, despite what the hell is happening around us. And I think that's really one of the things that we want to strive for. So they can be distinct. You can have declining health, but increasing wellness and happiness and inner peace. And here are some examples. I love this top example. I don't know if you've heard about it. So there were some beautiful studies where they took lottery prize winners and they compared them to people in the same neighborhood who had not won a prize, and then people who had just been paralyzed. And what they asked is, how happy are you? And how much do you enjoy daily, mundane life things like reading, being in nature, being with your family, etc.? What they realized is that people that had won the lottery were only slightly happier than people that were their neighbors, and they really didn't enjoy the day-to-day anymore. Their senses were really skewed at that point. And then they looked at people who were recently paralyzed, permanently paralyzed, and they realized that those people within 6 months were only barely less happy than the people that had been paralyzed. The people that are paralyzed enjoy daily life so much more. And then another study, which is beautiful, and this is a German study, taking a look at people who had very serious chronic illnesses and debility, paralysis. And what they realized is by doing a whole variety of fancy 360-degree interviews, they realized that people were about the same happiness within a few months of before their pre-paralysis set point of happiness compared to afterward. And so that was an incredible and indelible aspect to that. And that really is just really, I think, fascinating. So then here's some examples that are near and dear to your area, which I think are beautifully done qualitative analyses. They were looking at finding happiness and wellness in chronic or serious illness. In this one, this top article looked at leisure, so selected leisure and activity. And what it showed is if you selected physical activity and leisure, you had a more sense of quality of life, control, a sense of the enjoyment of your body and what worked as opposed to what didn't, and that you adapted and were more well during your chronic illness. And then the second one at the bottom really talks about the definition of happiness and really describe that people, if they had the more enduring happiness and wellness if they connected that in terms of their relationships with others. And I thought those are just simple themes. So now let's talk about finding meaning, often called finding purpose, finding meaning. So to proactively identify and cultivate what brings you happiness, what matters most to you. So this is an exercise that we can all do. It's a secular exercise, and I think it's very, very important. What are the experiences that are most meaningful to us? Who am I before and after a serious illness? When we look back on our life, what were the most significant events, traditions, etc., that impact us? And what are the most meaningful roles, activities that we are most proud of? And what are the things that help us feel most connected to life, others, and happiness? So when we talk about building a team for our happiness, I love these two analogies, and I literally think about them and share them almost every day. So this is the concept that we're all interconnected. We can't do this thing called life by ourselves. So we are all absorbing negative energy, intensity, emotions all day long, but we can't wring ourselves out. So the idea of a sponge can't wring themselves out. We need each other. We need help. The analogy on the right, no matter what happens in life, no matter who we are, our training, our background, our talents, our money, all of us can get in a hole. But if you're in a hole, you need someone to throw dirt in to make it more and more shallow for you, or you need someone to throw in a rope. All right, so we're all in this thing called life together. And at the bottom, again, another very important concept that I hope we all normalize and culturalize for our own well-being and that of our precious patients, no matter what our role is. And that's the concept that we all need professional help at some time. We don't just need a beer buddy, a fishing buddy, etc. We really all probably need professional help at one time in our life, or maybe many, 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 many times. And so the concepts of a true and authentic therapeutic relationship are the following. Number one, they really have to have a skill set. That's why they can't be a beer buddy. Number two, they have to be absolutely confidential so that you can really be free to say what you want to say. And three, their fate and your fate cannot be interrelated at all, so that you can actually really authentically talk and there's no conflict of interest. So those are the things that we want in real therapeutic relationships. And so when we think about living our best, longest life in our own artistry, there are some proactive things that we can do, either for no money, little money, even in our quiet space, as well as in our relationships with others. And that includes self-awareness. whether it's mindness, reflection, being in support groups, physical activity, getting out in nature. Self-care, whether we call that self-kindness, self-love, self-compassion, self-nurturing, self-valuing, it's about resting and rejuvenating, finding gratitude, prioritizing gratitude, positive refocusing in our life. And then it's about self-seeking. We're all in this together, but we can connect with others. We can connect with medical professional advice. We can connect with counselors and social workers, and we can seek wisdom and advice from all sorts of places. But this is a proactive experience. So feeling and functioning well in the face of brain tumors is about engaging resilience. So resilience is defined as adapting well in the face of adversity. And so we can simultaneously balance our bucket list and our shopping list by engaging resilience that comes from these concepts we talked about today. So I've left you with some resources that are actually off the grid. These are not like published references and resources, but these are actually some of the things that have meant the most to my life and my patient's life. Some websites at the bottom, some YouTube talks, etc. So again, my slides are available to each and every one of you. My information is at the beginning at the end. And I hope that this talk has been helpful for you today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's time, if not over the internet or at the break. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Erin. I actually was scribbling things down madly there so that I remember some of these things. I think they're all really, really important. The one thing that I really liked there was the normalising counselling, really important.